the impact would be immense human suffering, but also the loss of life. All the evidence, we've been campaigning so that the last government would monitor the impact. They did, but they never published the research until we forced them to, and we discovered over 600 people had taken their own lives as a result of cuts in benefits. And what we're seeing now is austerity coming back, and it's savage. 5 billion cut, and then overnight they decide they're going to take another $500 million out as well. It will mean immense suffering. I've got emails coming in from constituents who are dependent on PIP, used to have the old DLA, and are now, because on the new point scoring the government's introducing, they will not qualify, so they'll go without everything. And that includes even free prescriptions. This is desperate struggle now for people's lives.
Everything I've heard about this statement is going to be about further cuts in social spending on local government, health and benefits, because they've already taken $5 billion out of the personal independence payments budget, which means that many of the most vulnerable families will be driven into greater poverty. And I'm out here to say, hang on, I don't agree with this. My constituents need something safe and secure and need a decent living standard. And so they've then announced also $13.5 billion a year more on arms expenditure to go up to 3% of GDP. Well, that is not necessary, is not helpful. Can't we instead have a determination from government to bring an end to the conflict in the Middle East, to give the rights that are necessary to the Palestinian people and the security that go with it, and bring an end to the ghastly conflict in Ukraine and Russia? I do not support what Russia's done, but my point is, Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers dying, they are dead bodies, there are mothers and fathers grieving for them. Bring an end to the war.
As opposition leader, you forced George Osborne to U-turn on his decision to cut PIP payments.
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine a day where it would be a Labour government cutting PIP payments?
I was very proud that as leader of the opposition, we forced a retreat by Osborne on cutting personal independence payments. We defeated them. Actually, we defeated the Tory government 49 times while I was leader of the opposition. Record. The biggest defeat any government's ever suffered was under our leadership, when we were determinedly on it, on this, and other issues as well. I never thought it would be a Labour government that is now cutting PIP more than even George Osborne wanted to. And George Osborne was no friend of the poor and no friend of those with disabilities.
Why do you think this Labour government are cutting welfare before making the decision to implement things like wealth taxes? What's the rationale?
They bought into a narrative that somehow or other welfare is unpopular with the mass of the population. No, it's not. Explain to the mass of the population that the welfare state is their security. It's your security, it's my security. If something bad happens to us, it's there for us. It's the safety net that we all rely on. If you cut big holes in that safety net, people fall through. You see them sleeping on the streets. You see them begging. You see them in emergency mental health treatment. That's what happens when you destroy the security of our welfare state.
And can I ask you, what are you hearing from your constituents? How are they feeling about these welfare reforms?
Well, I walk around my constituency a lot. They feel disappointed and angry. They elected me as their Member of Parliament, as an independent, and I'm speaking up for them.
And finally, if you could say something to Rachel Reeves before she goes on to deliver the spring statement, what would that be?
I'd say, Rachel, you're there because the Labour movement put you there. You're there with the greatest opportunity ever to do something historic. Start a process of redistribution of wealth and power. Why are you flunking it?
John McDonnell, why is it important for you to be here outside with these protesters today?
Because we've got to stop the cuts, simple as that. I never expected to be here again, under a Labour government in particular. 12 years ago, I was at the founding conference of Disabled People Against the Cuts, and it was because it was the first round of austerity, and we knew what the impact would be. The impact would be immense human suffering, but also the loss of life. All the evidence, we've been campaigning so that the last government would monitor the impact. They did, but they never published the research until we forced them to, and we discovered over 600 people had taken their own lives as a result of cuts in benefits. And what we're seeing now is austerity coming back, and it's savage. 5 billion cut, and then overnight they decide they're going to take another $500 million out as well. it will mean immense suffering. I've got emails coming in from constituents who are dependent on PIP, used to have the old DLA, and are now, because on the new point scoring the government's introducing, they will not qualify, so they'll go without everything. And that includes even free prescriptions. This is desperate struggle now for people's lives.
You were part of the opposition government that forced a U-turn when George Osborne was considering cutting PIP. What has changed in the Labour Party since then?
I think what's changed now is that we've got a new parliament, 250 new MPs. They're beginning to find their feet, and they're beginning to, well, reflect what's coming at them in their constituencies as constituents contact them and saying, we can't live on this money. This idea that, you want to get people back to work, and people want to get back to work if they can, but they need the support, and if they can't work, they need the financial support to give them a decent quality of life. What this does, it undermines their quality of life, puts immense pressure on them, and it will cost lives. There's no doubt about that. We've seen what austerity did in the past. So I'm hoping that some of those new MPs wake up to what's happening in their constituencies and say to the Chancellor and to the leader of the Labour Party, this is not on. We've got to stop this. This is austerity back again.
You mentioned that it's austerity back again. Is doing things like cutting welfare, is it short-term thinking in terms of what this is going to cost?
This is what's ludicrous about what's happening. The very people who spend, if you put money in their pockets, are people on low incomes. And as a result of that, they increase demand in the economy and the economy grows. It's basic Keynesian economics. You don't have to be a revolutionary Marxist to understand that. So what's happening now is completely counterproductive to everything we're saying about growing the economy and investing for the long-term future. This is a huge setback, and I'm hoping that the way we're mobilising, both in Parliament, but more importantly outside of Parliament, we can influence this government to turn back. Otherwise, there'll be another round of cuts in the autumn on the budget.
And finally, can I ask you, why is it then that they are cutting welfare to disabled people on low incomes, rather than pursuing something like a wealth tax?
Because I think they're fixated on the neoliberalism that's dominated our economic thinking for the last 45 years. And what we need to do is demonstrate them there is an alternative. And the alternative actually is what disabled people are saying here. Support us. Many of us work already. Many of us want to work with support and contribute to society through work, but also we contribute by being within members of our community. Lots of disabled people here, even with their limitations, are contributing to supporting their families and also just engaging in society overall. So they just need the support any decent government would give them to have a decent quality of life.
Thank you so much, John McDonnell. Thank you.